Record. Good afternoon, Dr. Tom Larkin here with Mike Sands. Boy, do I have somebody interesting to visit with you about today. In the past 6 weeks, I have met a tremendous number of people in other industries that have great stories. Mike is with a company called Cloudburst. Cloudburst was founded in 1994 by Steve Wright, an offensive tackle for the Los Angeles Raiders, and his business partner, Mike Davis. And what they brought to the NFL was a cooling system with the misting. And you see him on all sidelines today. The story has it the next thing was the LA Dodgers. You got a picture on your website with Tommy Lasorda. And in 1996, this was the introducing of mist cooling to the Olympics in Atlanta. So that's incredible. So Mike, you got into the company 2007. You're an inventor. You have patents. You were just showing me one of your patented devices. Show me some of your background and passion.
Well, yeah, I got involved in the misting industry back in 2006, 2007. I had worked for a company called Misty Mate, and I created some new markets and products for them. And I've always been interested in portable ways to deliver mist for cooling, right? Back when I was a young guy, I came up with an idea of a fan on a spray bottle that cool yourself as you're sat out at the beach burning your skin, right, to keep yourself cool. I kind of let that all go, and back in 2007, I kind of started looking at it again and had some ideas, and came out with this product, which 3 or 4 years before I sold this part of the company. This was the #1 rated personal cooler on the market.
Wow!
Just it pumps up. Actually, sorry about that. This pumps up, and then you just push a little button, and a little fan.
Awesome.
And so I've been involved with creating different ways to add pressure and develop the best mist with different pressures for a long time.
Right.
That's why I came involved with Cloudburst. We kind of got together on a joint venture, and we ended up being partners. And so now Cloudburst, we do all high pressure, low pressure to high pressure. We have some of the largest misting apparatuses on the market. As you said, we started misting fans on the sideline.
So I saw that on your website. So 2 months ago, everybody's world changed with this whole COVID thing, where there were people in a specific industry that saw a different application, right? And so when I reached out to you, I told you that I had attended a webinar on fogging disinfectants, okay? So we're not going to talk about necessarily specific disinfectants, but what I want to talk about is the mechanism of fogging, because all of the message board in dentistry, they're talking about fogging and misting, and they're buying stuff online from China. And somehow I stumbled onto your website. I said, first off, you are authoritative. I mean, you're an inventor, you've got patents, you understand this. So the first question that I have, can you explain the difference between misting and fogging for someone who's a novice like me?
Yes, and I thought about that, the best way to explain that, and there's really no firm definition for either one.
Okay.
So I'm just going to take you through what our take is on it. Fogging is actually defined in a weather term as basically a cloud by the ground, right? It's a vapor, right? Mist is actually particles of mist, right? So fog it doesn't get anything wet. So when you actually drive through a fog, you don't turn on your windshield wipers, right? That's just the way it is. So, and when you talk about in the misting industry, high pressure mist actually atomizes water into very small particles. Somebody along the way came up with the term fog for it because it was a good marketing term.
Okay.
But it's really not truly fog. It's still mist, right?
Okay.
If you have fog, it actually just goes into the air. It doesn't get anything wet. Wave your hand through it, doesn't do anything. But really fine mist actually gives you a cooling effect. It's great for dust control. It's great for application. So they're kind of interchangeable. So there's some companies.
For disinfection and sanitation, we're going to need a wetting effect of some type of a wetting.
You definitely need you definitely need a wetting effect. And just real quickly, EPA actually has their own definition of fog and mist. Fog, and when you talk about pesticides and insecticides, a fog is typically a chemical reaction, right, that creates a plume. And they call it fog. I wish they just call it smog because it's basically poison that's being saturated in a room. So if you imagine a little fog bomb that used to disinfect or use for a pesticide in your apartment,
Right.
You set it off and you have to leave for 2 days, right? That's really what a fog is. And mist is considered anything of 10 microns or above.
Oh, okay. Okay. So so in this webinar that I attended, they use the term 20 microns. And so in your device here, you gave a range of from 5 to 50. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to show my audience. This just came in 2 hours ago. I actually have one in my possession, and this is the 5 nozzle star cluster. And this is a patent pending device. This thing is amazing. Okay. So there's no electrical cord, no battery, it's pump up. One of the things that I found that was amazing, because I'm used to garden sprayers, and when you pump them and push it down, you have to turn it and click it. But with this, you don't have to. Right?
Yeah, if you just tap it down a little bit, it just goes down.
And it just, like, I can go like this, and you can't even see it. You probably can't even see it on here, how fine that is.
Right.
Yeah, I've been playing with it for the past hour, going through the kitchen, going through the house. Yeah, very impressed, but we'll talk about this in a minute. Okay, so electrostatic sprayer. As part of my research, I've been reaching out to all these different companies, because you see electrostatic spraying, it's like, oh my gosh, it has electric charge and it sticks and does this, and that, and the other. And I've been quoted anywhere from $7,500 to one company quoted me $30,000 for some type of a system for the office. And I'm like, wow. So when we talked offline, you were saying that there's a little bit of funniness around this concept of electrostatic spraying, especially when it comes to disinfection and sanitation. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, to be honest with you, the electrostatic sprayers came out for coating metal and for cars and for powder coating.
Yeah.
In a lab setting, they ground the metal and they have this device, and it works pretty well in that setting. Now, people came out in the disinfecting market to claim electrostatic, and what that means is it's supposed to wrap around a thing, and they actually claim that it wraps around everything. Unless you read their fine print, it says it wraps around anything that's grounded. And so if it's not a piece of metal that's attached to the floor, like your desk or your computer or whatever, all plastic, your countertops, it has absolutely no wraparound effect at all. And if it is a piece of metal that's grounded to the floor, the little bit of wraparound it gets from this device, right, is nowhere near. You get a few drops on the other side. If you leave it like that, you have not disinfected that side at all. Okay. So my big problem with them is they're actually showing videos and making claims that they kind of show you waving around this thing and say, and it just goes everywhere. Well, It does not do that. Okay, it does not do that whatsoever.
Well, I'm so happy you cleared that up, because once again, for everybody in my audience, including myself, this is a whole new field. We're just trying to embrace what this new normal is, and protocols for the office. And so electrostatic is a word that's out there, and there's a tendency.
Very popular.
So there's a tendency when we look at products, dentists do this. If it's expensive, it must be good, right? And I think what I have found in the past month, that's not necessarily true, right? Just because it's expensive does not mean it's true. And there's all kinds of claims. All of the protocols that I'm going through, from ozone to hydrochlorous acid, I'm buying all this stuff myself, and I'm testing it at home. I'm using it at home. I'm just not going to throw it in the office and take anybody's word for it. I want to know that it's, that it looks and feels correct to myself. Okay, so there's a couple other terms I want to touch on, and then I'm going to show the device again. Dwell times. Okay, that was something that you mentioned. So that's a mist or fog, or however we want to call it. But there's a certain amount of dwell time that's going to be required for efficacy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you read on any disinfectant you're using, whether it's Clorox or your favorite household disinfectant, if you actually read the directions, it will say to use requires 5-minute dwell time. But dwell time means the EPA definition is once it's sprayed on, how long it needs to be left alone and stay wet. And you let it sit, and it has to stay wet while it's sitting. You can't wipe it off. Unfortunately, no one knows this, right? So whether you're using a sandy wipe that you take out of a canister, it has to have a dwell time. And if you just wipe it off and then dry it off right away, you haven't disinfected anything. And most people don't know this. I encourage anybody just to look up the dwell time. Right now, with what's going on with coronavirus, EPA is all over it now. A lot of stuff out is because most people are actually using disinfectant improperly, so they're not really disinfecting anything.
Right.
And it's not that hard to do once you know how to do it, right? So if you spray it on, let it sit for whatever the dwell time is of that particular chemical. It will say on the label, right? As long as you let it sit for that amount of time, then you'll get 100% of that label claim. If it's claiming it's 99.9999 disinfectant, to get that, you have to let it sit.
Great.
What it is.
So also, what the term wetting, W-E-T-T-I-N-G, wetting.
Well, that's the same as dwell time.
Okay.
It's and I'll go into, the idea is to be able to get your dwell time without having a lot of excessive moisture. When you talk about an applicator, you don't want to take a garden hose and soak some, your wood railing. You're going to ruin it. Right?
Right.
So you want to be able to get the dwell time, which is the least amount of mist or applying, whether it's through a sponge or however it is. And so you don't want to overwet.
Okay.
That.
Okay. So there's another chemical that you guys are using. When you was it a quaternary and amine or some type of another disinfectant that you?
Yeah, we're a distributor for Atmosphere. It's a quat ammonia disinfectant.
Okay.
Quat ammonias are one of the main disinfectants out there. There's alcohol based, there's hydrogen peroxide based, there's the ozones, there's chlorine or bleach. Those are all the most common disinfectants. They just all work on a little bit of different mechanism.
Okay.
Some people think the quats are the best, and they are. They're very concentrated. You can buy them in 1 gallon would make about 120 gallons worth, and it has a lot of things. And the product that we sell and most of the quat ammonias are on the EPA list as approved.
So let me ask you a question specifically on the nozzles, the brass fittings, because they're so fine and they're so amazing to get that very fine mist. Something like chlorine-based things tend to be corrosive, right? Would that be something would that be a problem, a chlorine-based product? And because I'm thinking about in our dental, there are things in our dental lines, like we have an instrument that's called an ultrasonic scaler, right? We have to be careful what we put on that. That's why I'm choosing to use ozonated water, because essentially it's water. It's non.
Well, no, you're right. I mean, there are, like, the chlorines, definitely, they're easy to get and everybody has them, but they are very caustic, right? So the art sprayer, it is designed to have, it's a bleach compatible sprayer.
Oh, it is. Okay.
But I personally don't like to use it because you can't do it on stainless. You got to be careful on different things. There are some other chlorinated products that are lower pH, but for the most part, we try to stay away from it. But our sprayer, the mister will actually work.
Okay, so let me ask you one other thing technically, because I'm just in love with this thing. The concept of pressure. So this has 90 PSI. You pump this about 10 times to get to 90 PSI. And obviously this has to be engineered. This is a super high quality instrument. It has to be engineered to, you would blow something apart that wasn't made correctly for that, right? So it's a high pressure, low volume. Is that the key to that thing?
What the engineering on that is, in fact, I'll just say that you can find sprayers that look similar to that are pump up and all that stuff. But the look is the only thing that's similar to it. Everything involved in this thing is completely different. It's designed to hold up to 150 PSI, right?
Wow.
It's a working pressure of 90. But any other sprayer out there, if you put over 50 PSI into it, you'll spill the bottle. So the bottle is designed in shape and thickness to hold high pressure. And then the pump, right? Most pumps you can't actually pump. If you try to get 100 psi into another sprayer, you'd be like, the pump is designed specifically to allow the average person to get 90 psi into. And then the nozzles on the end are another key feature. So with the right pressure, matching that pressure with the right nozzle, then we can get the plume of mist that we want. And kind of what you were talking about and what I'd said before is to make the mist, whether it's for dust control, for cooling, or for disinfecting, all a little bit different. What we do is match the pressure with the nozzles to give you the right density,
Okay.
and microns. Because if you have low density and you just have a little bit of spray coming out, it
Okay.
doesn't do anything. You have to get enough particles in a square inch to do what it is you want to do. And if you look at our mist on the videos that you'll see, you'll notice that our mist is really fine, but it doesn't fall off into the air. It's not a plume of smoke. It actually all sinks eventually down to the surface. So you don't have this caustic
Right.
plume.
One of the other things that comments that I've already seen online with someone that had bought one of the cheaper misters that was online from China is that they sputter. And I've been using this thing for an hour. There is no sputter. This is a consistent, super, super fine mist. So one of the things that the doctor, this guy was a PhD microbiologist that was given this webinar the other night, talked about, and these are, you know, these are protocols that are just kind of common sense, but they're new to dentistry. And he talked about at the end of the day, so one of the things we're doing is we're changing clothes before we leave. Like we change into scrubs when we come to work, to change out back into street clothes. And he was doing a spray disinfection with the hydrochlorus acid, you know, head to toe before he went home. And so I was just kind of wanting to see what that was like here. I mean, this is just super, super fine. I mean, it's not like I'm, you know, and I thought, this is perfect. I mean, I see every hygienist and I see one of these in every operatory because number one, it's 16 ounces. I know you do have another size. It's 32 ounces. You have a bigger size also.
Right.
And then you have some other things in development. I mean, you're embracing this whole thing that we're all going through. I mean, you'll probably have a unit that can be walked through the office to, you know, to disinfect. Yeah. But this is such a small, convenient, handy that I see this in between patients. You know, I mean, I think it has a multi-use. So I want to do a longer webinar with you. I really want to get you teed up to a bigger audience, but I was really anxious to get this on the Phoenix Dental Project website because I know people are looking for fogging devices, so to speak. And this makes so much sense. And this is, I hate to say this, it's $50, okay? It's not $7,500. And so I know that you're probably going to get quite a few orders pretty quickly because my audience is looking for these kind of things. So I thank you for your time, and I look forward in a couple of weeks. Let's do a webinar and do a deeper dive into this whole concept of fogging and misting, and we can talk some more about other products that you have.
Great.
Very good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time, Mike.
Thank you for having me on.